everyone. Welcome back to twitch.tv/DND. We are going to talk about Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica. I'm your host, Satine Phoenix, and today we have a really awesome set of panelists. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves? Jeremy?
I'm Jeremy Crawford. I am the lead rules developer of Dungeons & Dragons at Wizards of the Coast. Also one of the designers of Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica. And people can reach me on Twitter at Jeremy E. Crawford.
Awesome. Don't forget the E. That's
right.
very important.
That's for my middle name.
I'm James Wyatt. I am Aquella James on Twitter because that's the name of the campaign setting I developed when I was in high school. So I'm just saying. Yeah. I am a writer of things. I worked on D&D writing dozens of source books for 14 years, and now I work on the Magic creative team writing art books and little pieces of cardboard.
Thanks.
And I am Ari Levitch. You can follow me on Twitter at Winnemall, WINNEMALL. I'm also a writer for D&D. I was a world builder on Magic for 5 years before I made the switch, and I was one of the designers on Guildmaster's Guide.
Awesome. I'm Ashlyn Rose. I'm a cosplayer and streamer. I am also a cast member on Ravnica: The Broken Pact, which is the new D&D show featuring Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica. We're actually doing a show after this as well. It'll be live, so if you can stay here after this, you'll get to see it. You can find me on Twitter at twitch.tv, at Ashlyn Rose, and twitch.tv/Ashlyn_Rose. But yeah, tune or stay in. You get to see Ravnica: The Broken Pact, produced by Saving Throw Show.
Cool. Thank you guys for being here. Jeremy E. Crawford, can you tell us what Ravnica is?
Well, this book is the first time that we've taken Dungeons & Dragons and Magic the Gathering and mixed them together. And so it is a way for D&D characters to adventure in this amazing world of Ravnica, which is this world, all of which is a city that has these 10 different wondrous guilds that run the gamut from angelic beings to demonic forces, all trying to coexist in this amazing city. So our book is a deep introduction to that place. It introduces you to a piece of that planet-side city called the 10th District. It gives you 2 new subclasses to use in D&D, the Circle of Spores for druids, as well as the Order Domain for clerics. It gives you 5 new playable races, including the elephant-like Loxodon, who over here we see those elephant ears. It includes over 75 new monsters and NPCs.
Nice.
It includes guidance on making adventures in Ravnica, and it also has a background that your character can take to represent your membership in one of the 10 guilds. And your membership in a guild will give you not only the typical things that a background will give you, a special feature, skills, and whatnot, but it also gives you the opportunity to build up renown with your guild, and as you build up renown in the guild, you gain access to different special features. So you gain the ability to go deeper and deeper in your relationship, not only with the guild, but also with the other members of the guild. But then also, the catch is, the deeper you become involved in your guild, the more likely you're also going to get the attention of your guild's enemies.
Nice. I mean, not nice, but awesome. For storytelling, that's great.
So there is a lot in this book, and it is also chock full of gorgeous art.
Yeah, so I played Magic in 1992, a really long time ago. It's pretty awesome that you guys have decided to do the crossover. Now, I'm familiar with a lot of the other Dungeons & Dragons settings. What makes this different than other settings? I mean, you say all these words, but is there like a tone or a feeling that's different?
James, did you want to dive into that?
Sure. Urban adventuring has been a significant part of D&D from the beginning, but this is a world that really dials that up to an extreme, where it's all about the city, it's all about the interaction of the factions within the city, and it's about crafting adventures that make sense within that political context.
I just want to jump in. There's something amazing that as a player, and I keep talking about this every time I talk about Guildmaster's Guide, but when you're a player in Ravnica or playing a character in Ravnica, there's something amazing about playing in the city your character is from. So often in D&D, you're going to a new, unfamiliar place, and that is part of the adventure. And here, having the ability to have contacts, people that you know in the city, you're part of this. And so when things happen to possibly your neighborhood, like this is something that you might take personally, and that the discovery is about the interactions and not necessarily a new place for you as a character.
The other thing that is spectacular about Ravnica is that in many other D&D worlds, you go out of cities to meet the monsters. In Ravnica, everyone is living together. So you have giants and undead and dragons and demons and devils and angels and more all living together in one city and trying to make that work, as crazy as that sounds. And so when you play in Ravnica, you get to sort of play in that craziness.
So it's like playing in New York, which is like attached to San Francisco, attached to Tokyo, is that what I'm getting?
Yes.
And one of the things to remember is that when you choose your background as a guild, that you're joining one of these guilds, that's a choice. You're not born into a guild. These are not fixed things. And so if I live in the city, I'm a member of one of these guilds, my neighbors may be members of other guilds. My siblings may be members of other guilds, and that's a source of tension. It's also a good way to build a party that's made up of characters of multiple guilds.
The game I'm running at lunchtime in the office, the premise is that the characters all knew each other as children. Is that me? Okay. They all knew each other as children. They all went off and joined their other guilds. They came back, and hijinks ensue.
And a lot of hijinks. I'm in that game. It's pretty awesome.
Oh, cool. Ashlyn, you're like one of the first people to play in this world. Have you played Dungeons and Dragons before? What world do you come from? MTG or?
I come more from MTG. I've played Magic the Gathering since 2009. I've been playing it ever since. I've dabbled in D&D a little bit back in 3.5. So this is new to me, but I'm familiar with Ravnica. And so to be able to jump into a game and be able to role play in a game that I play with like cards all the time is really something special. And the guilds, I feel like that adds like a whole nother level to the experience. It's really cool to go through.
And for people who aren't familiar with the guilds of Ravnica, in some ways they're a bit like the alignments of D&D, but far richer, in that they express not only a worldview, but also an aesthetic. They also each represent sort of a different collection of creatures. For example, if you're feeling in a very sort of like druidy, a good alignment sort of mood, you might want to join Celestia, which is all about nature and community and is, filled with elves and others who are seeking to create harmony in the world. But if your character is feeling chaotic and you like living on the edge, you might want to join the Cult of Rakdos, which is crazy circus run by demons and circus performers and fire breathers, and try to navigate your way in this circus life while going on D&D adventures in this city.
That's really cool because I noticed the community has been kind of moving away from alignments, but this is a way to jump in head first. It's like this is what it's like to really play almost against other alignments, almost in a very strategical way, which is a lot like Magic the Gathering in the first place.
But one of the nice things is you have total freedom. So you could, for instance, join the Cult of Rakdos, this chaotic circus, but not be chaotic yourself. That really, we invite you, as Ari mentioned, where you have total freedom to figure out your character's place in the city of Ravnica. And so you could really play against type.
When you're joining a guild, it's not a monolithic entity. Every one of these guilds, even if you're playing two type, there's a range of things you could play, whether the different classes and races, but also just the way you interpret that guild's worldview.
So I could be chaotic adjacent.
Yes. Yeah.
I like to think of the guilds as a really good starting point. Like that first step that you take in thinking about the kind of character you want to play, I want to be a knight in shining armor. What a surprise. Okay, I'm going to gravitate toward the Boros, and then I can explore the options within the Boros Legion and start to shape my character ideas that way, either aligning with the ideals of this guild or saying, you know what, I'm not so keen on all the things that the angel Aurelia, who is not over there anymore, is proclaiming.
Yeah, I did find that, like, jumping into D&D, the guilds really help if you're new to RP. It, like, really helps give you this good, like, solid background of things you can go up against and, like, okay, well, this is what they believe in, and maybe not necessarily another guild, and this is what I can do to kind of portray that or push for that. Do I believe in that personally and stuff?
So I really think it's interesting that Ruben Brexler, who's the dungeon master for Broken Pact, he's decided to take it in a very noir way.
Yes.
Now, it seems really obvious. You're in a big city. That's a really good way. What other adventure paths would you recommend for this setting?
So the setting is so diverse and the city is so large, it honestly could accommodate almost any style of adventure. You could have a very beautiful sort of high fantasy adventure associated with the Celestia Guild. You could have a really sort of, action-packed, rugged, almost Mad Max style adventure. If you were adventuring among the Gruul clans, you could have a really noir kind of whodunit sort of campaign if you were adventuring associated with House Demir. I mean, again, it just goes on and on.
And classic dungeon delving into the Undercity, facing Golgari opponents.
Yeah, yeah.
Before we move on to how you guys figured out how to convert this, I want to hear like the new races. Like, I want to name. Can you name them for me? This is for me.
So there are 5 new races.
Okay.
The Loxodon,
Loxodon.
our elephant friends, Centaurs, Minotaurs, the Vidalcan, who are the blue-skinned people of Ravnica, and the final ones are the Simic hybrids. These are people who, through sort of magical science, have been reshaped so that they have different appendages and whatnot on their bodies. And they have been shaped in this way to help fight back the darkness, basically.
That is so cool. Oh my goodness. And a centaur? I would play a centaur. Now, you actually did that for UA, right?
Yeah, so the Centaur and the Minotaur appeared a while ago in Unearthed Arcana, and we were very coy about it because at that point we hadn't announced this book yet. And we just basically said these two races are associated with each other in Greek mythology, which is certainly true. But the reason why we were tinkering with them is we wanted to include them in this book because anyone who's familiar with the Ravnica card sets knows that Centaurs and Minotaurs appear in those card sets. So we felt that to be faithful to Ravnica, we wanted them to appear as playable options in this book.
Cool. There's the angel right there, Brittany Irving.
There she is.
Lady Dangerous.
Oh yeah, there is Boros Angel over there.
Yeah.
Those are beautiful wings. Okay, how did you do it? How did you take Magic, now this amazing card game, and then transfer it over?
So
in 5 words or less.
It is first and foremost a D&D setting. So there's no effort to say, okay, so red magic, like in Magic, works like this in D&D. It's you're using D&D spells, you're using D&D classes, you're using human or elf for these new D&D races. So it's a matter of taking the large amount of established lore about Ravnica from 2 previous card sets, the current card set, 4 novels, and basically just creating the world within the D&D rules framework.
And we were able to pull that off because we discovered, after first thinking we might need to bring in some pieces of the card game, we realized the more we explored that D&D actually could express Ravnica the place perfectly, and we didn't need to come up with new systems to do it.
Oh, cool.
That D&D as a framework is so broad and so customizable that we could take this world that had been created for this card game and express it faithfully using the D&D rules.
Very cool.
And a lot of the way that we were able to capture some of the flavors of the different guilds that you encounter is by creating monsters. And so a lot of the monsters that you will see here are kind of Magic exclusive, like they started in Magic and now are being expressed for the first time with the D&D stat block. So.
Now, one thing that we did that goes back to those guild backgrounds I mentioned is we realized when looking at the cards from the past that there are certain types of magic often associated with the different guilds. Types of magic you'd expect to see with Boros or with the Azoria Senate or with any of the others. And we wanted to make sure that no matter what type of spellcaster you were playing, that if you were a member of a particular guild, let's say you're a member of the Golgari Swarm, that you would be able to cast the spells that are iconic for that guild. And so what we did is a part of each guild background, we gave you a list of spells that you know no matter what spellcasting class you're a member of, and that is then a part of your identity as a member of like the Golgari Swarm or the Cult of Rakdos. And again, you get those whether you're a cleric, a wizard, a druid, or any other spellcasting class, simply by being a member of your particular guild.
And it was an interesting, there was a few conversations about this because what we ended up not wanting to do is telling players they couldn't cast certain things and take things away. So the guild spell list, what they're doing is they're giving players a sense of that flavor and incentivizing essentially this is what a caster of that guild is like. Now you can cast, whatever your class lets you do, but because we don't want to take stuff away from you as a D&D player, but just so you know, this is what kind of the guild casters, this is what their repertoire looks like.
Cool. So talk about your experience with this as somebody who's brand new. Just tell us what you think of it.
It's been a lot of fun. Like I said, it's easy to find out how to affiliate yourself with the guild and like your alignment. But on top of that, like I play a lot of healers in games I play and whatnot. So going with Selesnya is like, well, this guild and playing for Magic, they have a lot of life gain. They're usually either paladins or a lot of defenders. So I knew that a guild like that would be something I'd be more comfortable with and familiar with playing mechanically. So that made it a lot easier to jump into. I do like how playing with other guilds in your team, it makes for a very interesting dynamic as you're playing, like compared to other D&D settings. It's just you're playing with like an Orzhov and you're Selesnyan and you're trying to figure out how do I interact with this person and still like be in a party with them.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, because your goals might be completely at odds with each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's some element of almost Myers-Briggs personality classification. I mean, within the Magic creative team, we'll talk about what guilds we actually kind of align with. And, I understand now why Doug Beyer is the way he is. Even though he and I think completely differently. He's so red. and so that level of interaction also, just the psychology of each guild and the way that they interact with each other, let alone the politics, is really fascinating.
Yeah. What's also interesting is the way the guild backgrounds, what they let DMs do is respond to the party makeup. So if you're all members of different guilds, an easy thing for a DM to do is choose one of the guilds that is not present, represented among the characters, and then now you could have a campaign villain, or you could even, if you're doing a party composition, you all want to be members of the same guild because that's you're agreeing to do that ahead of time. Then it becomes very easy to come up with reasons why you're all together. So there's just a lot of options of how to build your party, and so when you think about when you kind of assemble your group together, having some like deliberation about that is a fun element to this.
And you even, to go back to again that theme of freedom, you even have the option of not being a member of a guild.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so then you get to explore the very interesting story of why are you living in this city, which is a city of guilds, not a member of any of them. And so we talk about that a bit in the book as well. And then this guild theme also is really key for the dungeon master. So just as the players face this choice of, is my character a member of a guild or not, and if so, which one? Every time a DM makes an adventure set in the city, the DM is faced with this question of, which guild do I want this adventure to be associated with? And so our adventure creation chapter goes guild by guild and shows you how you can create an adventure that has a Golgari theme, a Gruul theme, a Rakdos theme, etc., going all the way through the list. We give example locations for each one with ready-made maps so that the DM can just grab a map and say, all right, I have this location in the city ready to go, and I can place an adventure there. We give all sorts of plot seeds to help the DM come up with a variety of adventures associated with all of the 10 guilds. And we also give you details about different places in the 10th district, where you might set these adventures.
Wow, so you could actually make a campaign that's really long.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and our goal here was rather than providing sort of an exhaustive encyclopedia of every place in this world, which honestly would take a book probably 1,000 pages long or longer. We instead focused on creating tools for the Dungeon Master to get up and playing quickly. And to create the type of Ravnica adventures that the DM wants to create with, again, maps, NPCs, plot ideas, special event ideas, all built already and ready to go in this book.
It also has an intro adventure. So it comes with an introductory adventure. You roll up your characters, you start playing, and the way that adventure is structured is that it may lead. You could either do it as like a single, one-shot adventure, or it may lead to. It has hooks for who is actually behind this thing, and so it could lead to something even bigger.
And the DM has freedom then to decide what guild might be involved behind the scenes and flow that out into the rest of the campaign.
Yeah. So, and I realized actually talking about all the many different things in the book that actually we forgot there's also another chapter, and that's of magic items. So on top of the new playable races, the new subclasses, all the new monsters, there are also new magic items.
So many things.
And basically, we looked at the cards from past sets, and we wanted to make sure that we had D&D magic items that represented some of the most prominent magic items from past Ravnica sets. One of the things I also really like in the book is the notion of the guild charms.
Yes.
What is this?
So in the Dungeon Master's Guide, we introduced this idea of charms, these temporary magical abilities that characters can get. And so we lean into that idea much more heavily in Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica. Once you've reached a certain level of renown in your guildmaster or some other powerful person in your guild can bestow upon you these temporary magical abilities that you get to use when you go out on guild-specific missions. And so we have this set of charms that are specific to each of the 10 guilds.
And those are based on cards by those names, Golgari Charm, Boros Charm, that exist in Magic. The funny thing about, for Magic players, the word charm is almost a code for a spell that you can play that has 3 modes you can choose from. So all of the charms for the guilds give you a choice of 3 things that you can do with it.
And it was a strange serendipity that we had this notion of charms in D&D, and it's an example of how when we were doing this work, the Ravnica setting and D&D just interlocked perfectly.
Yeah.
It's almost as if they were created by the same company. Awesome. So this comes out in a couple weeks?
Yeah, comes out in November.
Awesome. So stay tuned. Keep your eyes on social media. We will let you know. In the meantime, don't forget, we have Ravnica Broken Pact, and that is Saturdays at 1 p.m. on twitch.tv/D&D. Dungeon Master is...
Ruben Wrestler.
Ruben Wrestler. I almost said Bruven Wrestler. And it's a really, really fun crew. You guys are amazing. I watch you every week, and I feel, as someone who doesn't play Magic, I'm learning about that world, and with the arena, I'm like, oh man, it's getting really hard not to play Magic.
It's inevitable.
But yeah, thank you guys so much for making this. Any last words to people to kind of lure them in a little bit more when it's time to buy?
Guys?
So I do want to just point out that the book itself is for both DMs and players, that it has goodies for both.
And for me, as a DM who loves looting things from books, Honestly, I'm most excited for my home game to loot the monsters from the book. Because the monsters will work in any D&D world, and there are some really spectacular creatures in this book.
I've actually been finding in my home game that I can transplant guilds or the concept of guilds very easily. Like, I'm using the Cult of Zugtmoy, and you know what? It looks a lot like the Golgari Swarm from Ravnica. Characters just went into a new city, and they want to hang out with the knights. Well, I'm secretly looking at the Boros chapter of the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica to figure out what they can do with renown with the knights, that sort of thing. So it is eminently lootable. The other thing I want to say really quickly is one of the things I love about this book is the number of tables that are there, and just so many little nuggets of ideas crammed into one or two sentence entries on a table for character ideals and personality and flaws and bonds and contacts and adventure seeds, missions you might go on, what's in this place.
And the
just all
guild
this
table
stuff.
with the guild
That
D10.
was so helpful. Like just knowing like how you feel about each guild if you're part of one guild, and you're like, this is what I think of Orzhov.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's one of my favorite parts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just you reminded me. So in addition to the book itself, there's going to be a dice pack that has an individual guild die. So it's a D10 that every face is one of the guild symbols. So if you need to roll on the guild table as a DM, you could just roll that die and just kind of read what happens. And then on top of that, there's a map pack as well.
And the map pack not only has in it copies of the gorgeous maps that we've produced of different parts of the 10th district, but it also has cards in it that have those guild charms on them that I was talking about, so that when your character receives one of those guild charms, the DM can just hand it to you.
Oh, that's really great.
And then once you've used it, you have to give the card back.
Cool. Well, thank you guys for being on the panel. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you. Wow, look at this audience. You guys are sexy. It's wonderful. Don't go away. You guys don't go away. We have the Broken Pack next at 4 p.m. right here. Tell everyone your name and where they can find you on the internet.
Ashlyn Rose. You can find me on Twitter at Ashlyn Rose and twitch.tv/Ashlyn_Rose.
And Ari Levitch, you can find me on Twitter at Winnemall.
James Wyatt. I am at Aquela James, AQUELA James.
And I'm Jeremy Crawford. You can find me at Jeremy E. Crawford.
I'm Satine Phoenix. You can find me at Satine Phoenix on all the things. Thank you guys for hanging out. Watch all of our amazing shows on twitch.tv/DND. That's right here. And keep your butt in your seats, keep your TV on, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.